everybody for coming. We have a small but mighty crowd today. We are going deep into deep dive. Today is a new moon, the beginning of our winter solstice weekend, and we have some big, deep, powerful questions for you all. So if we had a big room, it just wouldn't be as appropriate. I think this group, you all are meant to be here, and you could have been anywhere this morning. It's a Friday morning before Christmas. You could have been, trying to get a few more things done before the weekend, before Christmas, but you're here getting this done today. And you prioritize that. So thank you very much. Raise your hand if this is your first time coming here to Creative Mornings. Awesome. Thank you. Welcome. I hope that you can be an ambassador for this program because we don't advertise out there like all the other big programs. We're just a word-of-mouth group. And so if you like this, go tell a friend and bring them back next time. We'll be back in January for next month. All right. So let's give it up for Adobe. Our global sponsor, Adobe, has graciously reignited their support for Creative Mornings HQ Global around the world for another year. And they're just supporting to give us all of our materials. And they have an announcement that their new Adobe Firefly, which comes with your Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, has all of the models that you could want, including the new ChatGPT 5.2 and Nano Banana Pro, and like all of the other models are all in one place. So it's really easy to get your AI generations in one stop. All right, let's hear it for Wave Street Studios. All right. Things are a little different around here. We've got the tea room right in here because Judy wanted a really close view of our program. And the tea room is transforming into a bistro. So their dream of being able to provide it all here, not just drinks and entertainment, but also food, is now coming to reality after many, many years working on this. And I don't know how he does it, but this man knows wires and electronics. This guy knows entertainment and hospitality, but he also knows plumbing and wiring and woodworking. This guy is amazing. Let's give it up for Rhett Smith. And the woman behind Rhett, Judy Smith. These two are our hosts, and we love them. We love Wave Street. So thank you for allowing us to come back. All right, I'm Mike Buffo. My company is House of 8 Media, and I love producing video for creative folk. I'm a technical foundation, and I answer the call, and I make all kinds of videos. So if you want to make a commercial, let me know. If you have a documentary on your heart, or an instructional web series you want to do, just let me know, and we can put that vision to work out into the world, serving you in a bigger way. Okay, today's theme is innovation for this month of December. And to introduce this theme is somebody I've known for many years. She's very close to my heart, and she's also our family's photographer. Every year, she makes these beautiful portraits of our family. So that's my wife, Brittany. She'll be here soon. And Theodore, Jameson, and Wesley. This was like last week. Thank you, Michelle, Magdalena. Come on up here and introduce our speaker.
Thanks for the plug, Mike. That's so sweet, and I really appreciate that. This community is so creative, and it's just really good to be back. I used to be a co-host for Creative Mornings when I first started, and then Mike asked me to come in and introduce Maija, who's a very dear friend, a longtime collaborator with me in my community. I produced a magazine. It was first Bohipsy, and Maija helped me with when she was still doing legal to get my corp started, and we share this parallel passion for Indigenous sovereignty, local tribes, which is just blowing up right now, like with the Land Back movement, and let's just say Columbus Day becoming Indigenous Peoples Day. People are like clocking, we just went through Native American History Month in November, and there's like all this awakening happening in our country, which is just groundbreaking, and it's a big part of our healing. So the theme of innovation, I think, is really interesting to hit today. being the new moon, right before we go into this darkness of the year for winter solstice. And this time is just begging us to quiet and nurture and reflect. And I really think that that's key to innovation, because as soon as we give space for ourselves and our bodies to regulate, which is something I learned in one of Maija's amazing workshops that she teaches with her new book, Matriarchal Makeover. She teaches about her Latvian roots and really, white people, returning us to our own European roots. And it's something that we really desperately need. We need to recommit to our lineages because we're still human. Thank you, AI. You're doing your thing. We will cope. We will try to make art regardless. Thank you very much. But we still need to be creatives ourselves. And that process can be really scary. I know as a creative, to return to the creative process can be really vulnerable. And it can be difficult to trust our ability to create, to trust that we will make something that was as magical as it was in the beginning. It's like falling in love again. You're like, I'm shaking in my boots. I don't know what I'm gonna get through this. So I'm really excited to introduce Maija and her guidance for this time of trying to return to being innovators in her process. I'm really excited to introduce my dear friend, my sister, my matriarch mama, Maija West.
It's nice to be with you all. I just want to say thank you for coming this morning. I'm going to start with just inviting Lily Menkel and Eva West to come up and introduce the altar before we get started. Join me in a round of applause.
Hi, I'm Eva West. I'm currently studying in Valencia, Spain, and this is...
I'm Lily Menkel, and I'm studying landscape architecture at Cal Poly SLO.
So we built an altar today. It's in the very back, if you did not get the chance to see it. We made this altar today using traditional Latvian harvesting techniques. And what does that mean? That essentially means that we're asking the plant for permission to harvest before we're harvesting, and we're thanking the plant after we do harvest. So that's what we started, how we harvested that. And yeah.
Yeah, so if you take a look at the altar, it has this radial symmetry of 4, which represents the 4 elements of the earth. So we have fire, and for fire we have these Banksia seed pods, which are from Australia, and we blowtorch them. It was super fun to mimic a bushfire in Australia, and their seeds just open up, so that's super cool to check out. For water, we have the central bowl, and that kind of resembles that. Everything comes from water because everything's stemming out from it. For air, we have the fallen leaves of fall. We have pretty yellow ginkgo leaves and red sweet gum. And lastly, for earth, we have the buckeye seeds.
And we just want to invite you guys, we want you guys to be able to touch and experience the altar. So if you guys want to pick anything up, if you want to smell anything, you're more than welcome to. So go ahead and do that. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Lily and Eva. Just going to invite our folks to go ahead and find their place. Welcome, everybody. I want to just acknowledge Creative Mornings for inviting me to come today. I live out in Gonzales, and I don't get to town as often as I should, and it's always a great invitation to be able to come over to this side, to the peninsula, a place that I love and has such a beautiful diversity of people. I also want to really appreciate the tenacity of those dear here that have created this gorgeous studio space for us. I got to hear the story of what it took to be here to create this exceptional community space. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us here at Wave Street Studios. And then finally, Mike, thank you for the nudge to get me over to this side of the hill. And I appreciate always the invitation to come. And then I just want to acknowledge where we're at. We are our guests here on the lands of the Rumsen, Esalen, Ohlone peoples, and that is an acknowledgement that maybe some of you have heard before. And I I think of it very seriously as a way to show what it means to have good manners. So we're going to talk about what that means in that context. And I also got to hear the exceptional story today of Kwok Moy, who was born here as the first Chinese woman born in America in this actual house upstairs. There's a connection to our descendant activist leaders in the community, and it just felt like a full circle moment to know here we are honoring the truth and history of those that have made a deep commitment to making sure we all understand and to share all of our voices. My name is Maija West, and the request from Mike was tell people you wrote a book. So I wrote a book, and and the book is in the back. It's called Matriarch Makeover, a 30-day invitation, and it's an invitation to commit to 30 days to explore some journal prompts and to hear a little bit about my story about why I wrote the book, which took me 10 years to write. So for those of you who are working on creative projects that are feeling like they have a bit of a long runway, just want to honor you for being able to put it down, pick it back up again. But that's what that book represents, is a 10-year meditation. So when I loved that Mike asked me to speak on innovation, because I had a lot of strong feelings about it. But what I'm going to start with saying is that for me, innovation is not about speed, and it's not about doing something better. For me, innovation is about rebuilding cultures of trust, starting with ourselves. I had the opportunity to get to work with Michelle, Magdalena, and others for a retreat we had this fall, and we deliberately design our retreats around some basic principles. The first is that we start with our own individual feeling of how much we trust ourselves. For many of us who've been impacted by assimilation, displacement, and other forms of cultural erasure, which usually means almost everyone I speak to, sometimes this idea of how do we trust ourselves can be lost. Sometimes we end up taking on the cultural traits or the core values of the community we were born into, and we use that. And sometimes those core values don't feel like they're in alignment. And so today, the invitation is to explore what does it mean to trust ourselves again, and then to build authentic communities that are based on our relationships with each other. And I love getting to speak to some creatives because for me, innovation happens in the space in between. When I first started exploring this work, which I'll get to in a minute, I had to really think about these institutional systems that I found myself operating in. I was an attorney of 15 years, and I kept finding spaces of rigidity, spaces of power over, and other forms of dominant culture traits that I felt made me abandon myself to be able to participate. And through what I will only call a spiritual intervention, which was forced upon me because I wasn't going to change otherwise, I realized that the only creative space I could find is between these institutional systems. And as a lawyer, I was taught to learn how to cubbyhole things, how to take complex human issues and to put them in these neat and tidy boxes, and then use logic to apply to precedent. So my brain was literally reprogrammed to consider how do we compartmentalize and institutionalize the human condition. And because of the spiritual crisis, which I'll talk about, I was forced into the space in between. And I was nervous about that because that meant a spiritual realm, that meant the realm of interconnectedness. And as my dear, deep, smart friend Max Schmieder said, Maija, it's the dark matter. He said, if you're ever looking for an excuse to stay in the space between, remember that dark matter, which makes up 90-something% of all matter, wasn't even known about until the last couple of decades. It was such an invitation to trust what my body was telling me, which is in the space in between, I was going to find a creative wellspring from which I could find my true vocation. My name is Maija Danilova West. I'm a Latvian U.S. citizen. I'm first generation born in the U.S. My mom was born in a displaced persons camp in Germany during World War II. There are 2.5 million Latvians. They're part of what's classified as the Baltic people, which includes the Estonians and Lithuanians. But the part that I didn't really fully understand until I was in my 40s was that they hold the practices of the original land-based practices of Europe. And I was raised that way. I thought I was raised by a hippie named Maija Danilovs. The name should be the giveaway. But I was actually raised by a traditional Latvian woman. It's just that I was in a part of Northern California in the high Sierras of Lassen County, shout out to Westwood, population 1,700, where I didn't have a lot of examples of culture. I had white culture, I had dominant culture, I had 4th of July and hunting and patriotism, Paul Bunyan and the story of colonial impacts of logging. But I didn't understand that what my mom was teaching me was to protect my heritage. Little did I know that my name, Maija Danilova, was actually her best attempt to pull that thread all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, so that I would have to justify who I was and what I stood for. My name means goddess of the hearth and home. And I share all these pieces because I do think of the culture of trust as starting with our hearth in our home. I have come to understand as a woman and as a matriarch in the making that we raise the next generation of citizens based on what happens in our home. And that's everyone's responsibility, but I've come to recognize that devaluing of raising our children with the core values we want to see in the future is part of the challenge. Spiritual intervention. Spiritual intervention came from me saying yes to a human trafficking case in Monterey County. I was still practicing law at the time, and I was asked to represent pro bono a indigenous woman from the Triqui population who had been trafficked from Oaxaca. She was a minor when she was trafficked, to let that set in. And when I started serving her, she was 22 years old and had a 5-year-old child. And she was being forced into a custody battle. I didn't know anything about the indigenous peoples of Mexico. I didn't understand how that system created unseen forces of control in the agricultural fields of the Salinas Valley. But through the course of serving this young woman for 2 years, I got to learn about a lot. Most importantly, I fell out of love with humanity because I saw what I call the blood brother pact alive and well. It's the unseen forces of power that create ways to continue to extract from human beings. And that was scary. That was impact on my family. And it made me change my whole life towards serving First Nations people, and especially women, to listen to their voices and to make sure all those cultural lifeways are protected, because it was through working with this woman that I found my way to my current vocation. But most importantly, I was super frustrated with my white sisters, because while I was working on this case, I was genuinely afraid. And I witnessed when I would confide that I was afraid of working on this case because these trafficking networks are alive and well in Monterey County, and much better now. This was 10 years ago. My white sisters would forget that I was working on this case. Some of them, not all of them. But some of them would actually forget. And this woman represented hundreds of potential survivors in the area, and I came to understand that what was happening was they were disassociating. And so that was my extension of my heart towards compassion. My dad was a Buddhist and a Vietnam vet, and he was just constantly talking about be present, be humble, and always make sure that you bring that humility into your understanding of other people, as we don't know what it's like to walk in their shoes. So as I better understood these systems, I understood that our disassociation was cultural, it was multi-generational, and it had its origins in Europe. And so I looked at the places in my life where I would shut down when I heard something difficult, where I would feel afraid to speak up, and I realized that I needed the solidarity and the trust of others, of all genders, to be able to speak my truth. And those stories, the reason I bring in my personal stories is very deliberately, because vulnerability is at the core foundation of trust, which is what I'm calling the futuristic technology of innovation, because we've forgotten how to authentically be in relationship with each other. For example, if I introduce myself, hi, I'm Maija. What's your identity? I'm white. What does that tell you about me? Can you trust who I am? Can you trust where I'm from? Do you know who my family is? Do you know what I was taught growing up? Does it tell you anything about if I even know myself? I can say something, a perfect answer is, I'm mixed European and I have no idea who my people are. That's a beautiful way to introduce yourself if you're trying to build trust. It's vulnerable, it's awkward, It's an invitation to the other person to be like, yeah, I don't know either. And for all of, and for all the people of color that are here today and are listening, that thread of their own European identity too creates an opportunity for discussion and a bridge as well. When I had my first Chicano professor whisper to me, I'm actually 30% Irish. Okay, I won't tell anyone. So trust is a structural technology. And I want to share a little bit about what this looks like in practice. These are the traditional technologies of trust. Truth and history. The invitation to know where you live, where you work, where you're doing a presentation, and where your people are from. I want to specifically acknowledge one of my teachers, Atarangi Muru, who taught me that to know your people, even if it's an awkward, uncomfortable story, is actually a bridge to relationship and trust with others. When we rebuild these cultures of trust, we start with our vulnerability and we start with our personal relationship to ourselves. We can bring this into our work. Yes, we can. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And it's structural, how we design our structures to allow for all of us to have a moment to bring our humanity into the spaces, in the institutional spaces. Life-affirming values. I've started calling these life-affirming values because they're the core values that reflect all people. Which means that here in this room, however you identify, you come from land somewhere. You are from land-based people. You are a land-based person. It's just that maybe you've forgotten part of your story. And those life-affirming values are actually universal values. The values of informed consent, like Eva demonstrated through respect for the earth, asking permission to take something from a living being. We know that through our relationships, how important informed consent is, but we can also practice that in relationship. Reciprocity. Being a good guest means not being empty-handed. And there's many, many more that you may have from your teachings and your people. I've had the privilege in my vocation of acting as a peacemaker to Indigenous peoples, but I find it the most fascinating that my new career this last 5 years has been to be someone who runs meetings. After I retired from the practice of law, I was asked by a dear person in my life, my husband of 25 years, what do you love to do? And the Latvians don't ever ask themselves that question, so it's always hard, and that's why it's taken 25 years of being married to somebody who loves answering that question, because the Latvians had to put their head down, hunker, count their potatoes, that kind of energy. That's how they survived, and that's baked into my lineage as my blood memory. So what do you want to do for me was to run meetings, which is to bring the peacemaking practices and what I've learned from the Latvian people into meetings, into the structures. So there's something on how to run a meeting. There's a little handout in the back. Take a picture of it if you like, but that's bringing in some of these peacemaking practices and matriarchal values. Finally, ceremony in everyday life. This is part of the ecological governance systems. One way that we can build trust and wholeness in our work environments is to start with ritual. I have made it my living to bring ritual into all of my meetings in a way that's acceptable to anyone in the room. Today we have a land-based altar. I'm specifically saying land-based because who can fight with land-based, right? It's literally plants. Who's gonna get mad about plants? And yes, they're based on the elements, but guess what? All people have access to the elements. The elements are the elements, whatever land you're on. And in fact, what we now know is if we look back in time into the pre-medieval practices of all European people, there is this very structural concept around well-being tied to the elements and the work of Hildegard. So call it a Hildegard medicine wheel. Medicine wheels are from the First Nations people here, but there are also these threads of parallel in other cultures. Finally, traditional technologies, the last part here is the analog survival tools for our time. So we have the capacity to build trust when we notice what's going on with our body. And some of the great teachers of presence, compassion, mindfulness, whether this through the restorative justice community and anti-racism work and the Buddhists, always say your first job is to notice. And this means noticing, first of all, the sensations in our body, sensations such as constriction in our chest, butterflies in our stomach, clenched jaw, shortness of breath, tingling in our fingers and toes. Those are all sensations of a technology that our body's trying to help us say, something's wrong. Those are all examples. Something doesn't feel right in this room. I went through 2 years of meeting on a certain project where I felt physically ill, like nauseous. And it was my body telling me, do not be in that room. And I was like, still like this, overly professional lawyer, very ambitious. And my brain was telling my stomach to shut up. Don't listen. I'm not going to hear you. The should of why I should be in that room was overriding what my stomach was telling me. When we can notice what's going on in our bodies, we have the greatest opportunity to be able to communicate and understand our feelings. To give you a specific example, it was 6 months ago that I truly honored the sensation of what happens in my body when I hear anger. Now, these are from my childhood experience, and many of us have these experiences where we get these biological imprints in our body from our families of origin, or from a traumatic experience in the work environment, or from a community impact. And I recognized that in order for me to take responsibility for my own noticing my body, because it's nobody else's responsibility, was to recognize that I was releasing the chemicals of stress inside of my own body in response to someone else's anger. And I was like, wow, I'm 50. I finally feel that feeling. So I share that story because we all are at our different paths in this work. It's not a linear path. It's very much like a cyclical process of reiterations over and over again through our lifetime. And I'm humbled by what it takes, and also incredibly thankful that at 50 I finally started getting a little noodle of that one. The last things here is growing a garden and sharing a meal, plants as medicine. These are not hobbies. They're sophisticated technologies for our future survival. I've made my living saying the things that nobody else will say. We are in a terrifying time of massive change. It's the space in between where we need to be tending to the soil of our imagination, tending to the soils and the native environment around us, and most importantly, remembering that food is medicine. We have forgotten that we do have the tools around us to take care of ourselves. Do I love penicillin? Yes. I'm not saying that we have to abandon all of Western medicine, but we all know where penicillin came from. So what does it mean to bring these technologies back into our life and to reprioritize and reemphasize them? The invitation, of course, is for you to think about what those might be for you. So I said I run meetings, and that is totally true. That's what I do for a living, and I do that on an annual basis with some clients. But I also just can't stop dabbling in this world of the matriarch makeover. And I'm also living out in the middle of nowhere for a reason, which is that I'm taking a break from a lot of human interaction to help myself heal from the burnout of running a career, having a law practice, raising a child, all the things, taking on the trafficking case. There's so many things that were part of my need to heal. But there's still things that I'm offering. I just want to share a few of those. My book, the reason why I wrote this is because I wanted to have something I could give to a sister that was going through a hard time. The tools that are in the book are the tools that helped me out of my spiritual crisis. I needed new tools for the toolbox, literally. And things like cognitive behavior therapy, the things that I had understood before were not enough. I needed deeper tools. So that's what's in the book. Also, I am working with my dear friend and colleague, Hilary Giovanni, and we happen to publish our books the same month, and our lives are in parallel. She lives in Flagstaff, Arizona. She's very fancy and very fun. And we're doing this lineage course in January, and we have some amazing speakers. So for those of you who have any European ancestry, you're welcome to come. And then we have a member circle if you're wanting to connect with other folks that are interested in this work. And then I'm currently very privileged to offer a Latvian cultural practices course with Aya Harrison. And again, these are on these land-based practices that have threads of familiarity to a lot of European people. And we have all kinds of folks. You don't have to be Latvian to be in the class. And then new for 2026, there's going to be a course for men. And there's a couple men in this room who are smiling right now because they've been asking for this for a little while. And I am ready to do this. And so I just wanted to share that that's coming up. So when I talk about Matriarch Makeover, I'm really not using that to be a gendered invitation. This is truly a space for all people. This is my happy place. This is what I look like when I'm not wearing a suit jacket. My goal in 2 years is to only be doing this, okay? So I just want to finally come back to the last piece. The Latvians have a ceremonial practice called Pirts, P-I-R-T-S. And its thread is in the sauna. Michelle Magdalena took this photo. And I banned it from my website, so you guys are the first ones to see it. But I wanted to come in with this because this is really who I am. When I'm not here in these type of spaces, I am unfurling myself into my wildness. This is a Costco sauna, so guess what? They're pretty accessible. If you want one bad enough, this one's been around. It looks like it's been around because it almost got lost in the 2023 floods of Carmel River where we used to live. We had to eye-bolt it to the house with chains and put a bunch of sandbags in it to save it. And it's currently where the ceremonial practices of Latvia happen. I'm going to share a few things about that. This is an invitation. Part of what has happened to the communities that I am in support of is many folks are looking for new spiritual tools to handle this profound time we're in, which is we are watching as the last gasps of dominant culture are breathed. We are listening to the death rattle for those who do hospice work. And even within the death of a system, there are the dignities of certain pearls of wisdom that come out of that. And for me, that's the hospicing of modernity that we're going through right now, like penicillin. There's a few things that we have really learned through these systems that we want to tend to, like hospice workers. And then we have the emergent systems that are coming, thanks to people like Agent Marie Brown, who've given us a framework and emergent system thinking that we are midwifing in. And the Pirts for me represents that. The Pirts is a place where we are midwifing in our remembering. The Latvians describe the Pirts as the womb. And when I first started studying this as a practitioner, I asked my teacher, how often do the Latvians go in to the Pirts? Well, every week, of course. You have to go into the womb every week. All Latvians go into the Pirts every week? Well, if they can have access, of course they do. Why? Because that's where we remember. That's where we humble ourselves. That's where we find ourselves sitting shoulder to shoulder with each other. And that's where we recommit to our relationship to the natural world, to the spiritual world. And these folks also go to church, and they're Lutherans, and they're adorable. So they're living in all these different worlds, but they do both. So with that point now, I want to pause and say, the invitation, as I have done with you, is to demonstrate some vulnerability today. I want to invite you to have the courage to say what you stand for in the space in between, and to express that creatively for those of you who express yourselves that way, and to know you're not alone, that we are all doing what we can to be in this playground, in this space in between together, and to keep our attention focused on that space. As I close, I want to invite you to take some time to get to know each other. And as I do, there is a couple of questions. And so we're going to start with a get to know your neighbor. You have 5 questions to choose from. Go ahead and take some time to pick one. And then you're going to share with your neighbor, okay? And if you don't want to share, we're practicing informed consent here. You can be like, no, thank you, I'm going to pass, okay? Where in your life or leadership are you being asked to rebuild trust, starting with yourself? What inherited identity, role, or story are you ready to question in order to lead with greater integrity? What does being a good guest mean in systems, communities, or land that you move through? What ancient or embodied practices in relationship, ritual, or rhythm feel necessary? And if an innovation is remembering, what is something you already know that you've been postponing living into? Big questions. You could also just start with, hi, my name is, nice to meet you, okay? So that's what we're gonna do. It's just gonna take a few minutes to get to know your neighbor, And then as we come back, I'm going to do a final reading, and then we're going to hear from Mike. Thank you for having me. Yes, of course. Okay, so go ahead and we're going to do 1 minute share each. Got some neighbors right there, 2 neighbors right there. Look at that rose natural fit. So we're just going to create an awkward moment to say hi to your neighbor. And you can say, I don't feel like talking about myself right now. Some people in the back. Okay, we're going to come on back. So good. And finish your last sentence there. Bringing yourself back. And we're starting to see we've got row 1 making its way, honoring in row 2, and we got row 3 and 4, and we've got our camera crew back. All right, we're all on our way back to this group. So I have a QR code here, but it's also in the back of the room. This is just to access the resources. Tons of free resources on this website, and all of our offerings are contribution only. We don't charge for those things. So just know that that's part of our philosophy. And so we don't turn anyone away due to lack of funds, and we welcome everyone to come. This is the cover of the book. Again, I promised Mike, here's the second pitch. There's the book. And I want to just say thank you. Thank you for inviting me today. It was a pleasure to be with you all. And I'm just going to invite Mike to come up and be our person for encouraging some shares. And I know he has a great question for you guys. So thank you again for having me today.
Thank you, Maija.
All right, so for this section, do you have the handheld mic?
Yeah.
So my question to the audience this time is, what are you committed to? What are you committing to? So if you want to stand up and share something, you're committing to it in front of the Creative Mornings community, which adds a level of integrity to the announcement. So who dares to go first and maybe inspire others with your bold share?
Thank you so much for the talk today. Can you hear me? So I was born in Iran, in the Persian land. And when I came here at 19, I kind of put my own culture, everything to the side because of everything I had experienced up to then. And I got actually very interested, involved in the American Indian lands and the sisterhood and shamanism and all of that, and very much in touch with land until just recently I was at a lecture when a speaker was from Persia, and she was giving the history of my ancestors from like 10,000 years ago, and all the wisdom of the mystic women from there. And you're talking about the sensation, body sensation. I had goosebumps all over my body, which was telling me I am connecting to something that I've been disconnected for so long, or I've been rejecting, or whatever. And so my commitment is I wanted to get to know my own ancestors, and I highly recommend it to anybody because we are all one, and there's so much information. They want to hand it down to us so we can move into the future with that wisdom. So just committed to learn a lot more about my own ancestors, my own land, and the wisdom of my ancestors.
Thank you, Shaheen. Amazing.
Anybody else want to share?
Maija, thank you. And I am committed to try to continue to be as authentic as I can. And I think I can say that your authenticity and your dedication is absolutely clear. Thank you.
Anybody else want to share? Every share is welcome. I commit to remembering that my toes are attached to my feet. It can be anything. Okay, that was the invitation somebody needed. Philip?
Philip Dawn. I have enjoyed my relationship with Maija and the wisdom that she brings to any space she occupies. And my commitment is to stay curious and open. Maija's parents lived in DP camps after the war. My parents worked in one, and that's where they met. And if it weren't for the DP camp, I wouldn't be here, because my father was a director for DP camp in Bavaria, and my mother was a medical officer. And they came from divergent backgrounds. And that was a true melting pot. And I think we're seeing the reverberation of that and continuing to see the reverberation of that. And I think just staying curious. So that's my commitment going into 2026, is to stay curious and open to listen.
Thank you, Philip.
DP camp is a displaced persons camp, and during World War II and after the war, folks fled to these camps, which were basically waiting areas before people could be exiled across the world. Yeah, and most of them did not return to their homelands after because of the occupations. And the United States, while they did a very important role during World War II for the Baltic peoples and many of the sovereign peoples of the kind of the USSR edge, continued to be occupied until 1991. So they were still, even if they returned home, they were occupied until then. Yeah, great question. Anybody else want to share their commitment?
Hi, I'm Amanda, and I'm a person who stutters, so it's normal. But I commit to learning more about my cultural background. I'm 15% Jewish, and just this past week had a very interesting conversation with my daughter about it. We only started celebrating any of the Jewish holidays after I had my daughter. I had her when I was 40. And just had no background in celebrating the Jewish culture because my family passed, very purposefully. My grandmother actually was in the Women's Army Corps in World War II. She went overseas, so definitely had a strong conviction that she wanted to fight the Nazis. But then once living in the States, she had already lived in the States, and growing up and us growing up as her grandchildren, there was no mention of we are Jewish and this is what Jewish people do. We also weren't Christian either, so it's not like it was in contrast. But when my daughter was preschool age, I put her in a JCC, a Jewish Community Center, because it was like the best preschool around where I was in Boulder, Colorado. And so then I started learning so much about the Jewish culture that I didn't know, and she was teaching me Hebrew, and it was so funny. And so just this past week, we made our latkes on the first day of Hanukkah. And as we were making them together, and I said something about I do this a little different every time. She was like, "Well, how did your grandmother do it?" And I was like, "She didn't. It's so wild, but no, my grandmother did not teach me how to make latkes, and I'm not sure that she ever made latkes." And so, we're learning together. And then she really started to question. My daughter was like, "Well, why was that?" So I taught her what passing was, all of that. And so very interesting that I happened to come here today right after that conversation. So I commit to learning more and teaching her more.
Thank you all.
Thank you. I got one. Okay, so all right. What struck me deepest about your questions was being a guest. How am I a guest? And I could be better at acknowledging the land in which we are participating in with this space. So I'm going to commit to writing a land acknowledgement with Rhett and Judy for the history of this space, and presenting that and doing that from now on.
That's great.
Why not?
Look at all of us holding each other accountable. So we just did a beautiful exercise in trust building together, which is now we have heard a sweet, earnest commitment from several people in this room and also in your partners. I just want to encourage you to remember those commitments. See if you can look at the people who shared and remember what they said, because of course the next time you see them you could say, "Hey, remember you said this thing? How's it going? How's it going with your daughter? How is it going in being curious?" We can bring these things to each other. So thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Mike as we head towards closing.
Okay. Thank you, Maija. Let's hear from Maija one more time. All right, it's time for a community spotlight. So this is your chance to come up for 1 minute max and give an announcement of a gathering you're having, or a book release, or a ribbon cutting, or a musical performance, or a new club that you're starting. Anything like that. If you want to come up one at a time, come on up here and give an announcement. 1 minute.
All right, to you. My husband is Jewish. I was raised Muslim, but my religion is nature. But we go to Center for Spiritual Awakening in Pacific Grove, which is a nonprofit, and we acknowledge and honor all the mysticism around the world. And this Sunday, we're having Hanukkah, acknowledging the history of Hanukkah and winter solstice, which is from my Persian land. We're honoring both of those, and it's open to anybody who likes to come. The service is at 10, and then we're going after the service to the community room and have the festivity. We're going to have altars, and because in Persia we have altars for every season as well. So we're combining it. So you're welcome this Sunday at Center for Spiritual Awakening in Pacific Grove. It's called CSA. Please come, join us, and enjoy the talk and music. We're going to have music and the festivities.
What time?
10 o'clock it starts.
Thank you.
You come there, you know. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Shaheen. Who's next? All right. So I'm starting the club. It's a virtual club. It's weekly. You can attend it from home in your pajamas on Wednesdays at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. 10. It's just 1 hour. And so what it is, it's a weekly AI workflow sharing circle. So if you have discovered a new way to create slides that are immaculate and beautiful, and it was easy, maybe there's somebody else in this community and others that you want to share that with. Just go on camera for 5 minutes and share. So it's a weekly sharing circle. We have been having a couple of great ones, and I got my live streaming set up, and I'm just looking forward to doing this and creating community, because so many of us are just being inundated with new tools that we need to learn and things like that. And I think we could all learn from each other, and how to get over some of the humps around kind of innovating. That could be really cool. You could save yourself some time, learn some new techniques. And honestly, I'm in it because I want to learn more about how to improve my workflow. And I've got a lot to share as well. So if you're into that, you'll get an announcement about that. And you can just register and then show up in Google Meet and sit around the circle every week. Okay, Workflow Club. See you there. Who's next? Anybody? Okay, come on up here, Amanda.
I run a Facebook group called Peninsula Women that is specifically for liberal women over 40 on the peninsula, mostly because I was new here and wanted to meet more people. And so in that group, I did advertise this event in the group. So I do a lot of advertising of events people might want to go to, and with the idea that we gather together and we meet each other. So if you want to join the group, feel free. Also, if you ever want to let me know of events that you want me to talk up in there as well. Thanks.
Okay, by show of hands, who has something amazing planned for tomorrow night on Saturday? Okay, there we go. That is a fantastic idea. It's 7 o'clock tomorrow night at Lighthouse Cinema and Events Center. Monterey Comedy Improv will be having an amazing show full of silliness, imagination, and joy. So if you want to forget about all your troubles in the world for about 90 minutes, please come to Lighthouse Cinema and see Monterey Comedy Improv tomorrow night. It starts at 7 o'clock. And you can get tickets from Lighthouse Cinemas if you just give them a quick Google. I don't think we're sold out at the moment, so you may be able to just show up and get a ticket. But buy in advance if you want to make sure you get in.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. All right, if there are no more announcements, we're going to close this program. Thank you all for coming. We're here the last Friday of every month. We'll be back on January 30th. See you then. Thank you very much. And don't forget to get a book signed in the back from Maija. Bye.